right? So yesterday we discussed about how to read the data from Excel, right? Uh, how to identify or how to retrieve how many rows are there, how to retrieve how many columns are there, or retrieve the data from a particular column and all. We'll see further today. Next, okay, let's say this. I have a lot of values in an Excel, okay, and in some of the places I have like this, and I'm searching for some value. I need to search for certain value here in this Excel. And how you search for the value in this Excel? You go cell by cell, right? And my value is test. Okay, the value what I am looking for here is test. So what I have to do is, if the value is found in any of the cell, okay, if the value is found in any of the cell, I don't need to do anything, but I just need to change the font of that cell. Okay, that means that wherever the test is there, I just need to change the font to maybe green. Okay, wherever the test is there, I need to change that to green. Okay, then I may need to make the font as bold in that, only for that cell wherever the test is. Okay, so that means that I may need to change, or I need to format little bit. I need to do some formatting a little bit in the cell, each cell. Okay, wherever the value is there. So far we just read the data from the cell. We know how to read the data, but we have to know how to do the formatting of that particular cell. That means changing the font name, or changing the font color, or changing the just making the font bold, making the font underlined or italic, or maybe increasing the size of the font. Few things related to the font format. Also, certain situations what I have to do is, maybe instead of highlighting this in the green, the font, then I may need to change the background color. Wherever that font is found, I may need to fill that with maybe red or some other color. So not the font color I want to change, but I want to change the background color of the cell. Right? So getting what I am saying here? Then see what I am doing is, I just save this, and where this data is there in sheet 5, right? So what I have to do, my requirement is search the value or retrieve the value from one by one cell. If the retrieved value from a cell is test, highlight that cell with highlight the font of that cell with green, then increase the size. What is the default size here? Default size is 11. Okay, so increase the font size, and also change the name of the font, like maybe it's Calibri now, and change the font to Times, or change the font to Arial, and make that font as underline or anything, just different styles, that whatever we have or we can do. Okay, so that's a requirement. Fine. So let me take this file now. I'm just taking the path of the file, and file name is new file.xlsx. Then you say str file path equals to this, then new file.xlsx. Okay, I want to read the data, right? Cell by cell I need to retrieve. How do you do that? Cell by cell. What's the logic we use? Any idea? I have to use something called nested loop here. First what we do is understand how many rows are there, how many columns are there, and then loop it from first row to last row. In each row from first row, loop through all the columns in the first row, first column, second column, third column, fourth column, based on how many columns are there. Once you complete all the columns in the first row, you come to the second row, again in the second row loop through all the columns. Once all the columns are completed in second row, come to the third row, again all the columns in the third row. Like this in every row, first loop is from first row to last row. Second loop is in each row, loop through all the columns. Then in this case, what you have to do is you need to write two loops. One loop is for rows, another loop is for columns. Then how do you do that? You say set OXL equals to create object, Excel dot application. Spelling mistake. Then set O workbook equals to set O workbook equals to OXL dot workbooks dot open str file path. Then set O sheet equals to O workbook dot worksheets of sheet 5. Right? Then you say oh sheet. There was yesterday somebody asked the question here. Okay, when I say workbooks or when I say sheet, it is sorry Excel, it was displaying the methods and all, right? For Excel application it was displaying, and also for workbooks also OWB is a workbook. For that also it is displaying the method, but for worksheet it is not displaying the methods, right? For OWB, that's nothing but the workbook. For workbook it is displaying the methods. For Excel application it is displaying the methods when I click on dot, when I press the dot there. But for sheet it is not displaying the methods. What was the reason? There was a question yesterday somebody asked. The reason because worksheet they have created as a subclass. There will be concept called main class and subclass will be there. So all workbook and Excel application are the main classes, and worksheets is defined as a subclass. So it is when you are using subclass, where you have when you have initiated the subclass, VBScript fails to retrieve the methods from subclass. But during runtime it can use that. It can use those methods, but during design time it will not identify those methods. That's the reason it's not displaying. OSheet dot first, okay, you have to understand how many rows, right? Say user range dot rows dot count. Total rows equals to say total column columns equals to OSheet dot user range dot columns dot count. This is how you get total number of columns and total number of rows. Now how the logic is now, how our logic should be, loop from first row to last row, and then in each row, inside each row, right, loop from first column to last column. That means loop related to the columns should be placed inside the rows. In each row it has to be executed. So main loop is for first row to last row, and nested loop is for first column to last column. So nested loop should be executed for every row, right? Nested loop is for columns. Okay. How that should be written now? For I equals to 1 to, this is one loop. Next nested loop, how we can write? For j equals to 1 to total columns. So this loop will be executed every time when this loop is executed. If main loop is executed 5 times, then this loop will be executed this many times. Now assume that total columns are 5. 5 columns are there, total rows are 3. So when I say I, here main loop I equals to 1 to 3, total rows are 3. Then nested loop will be for j equals to 1 to 5. So first time I value will be 1, come inside, nested loop will be executed how many times? 5 times. Then go back to the main loop, then I value will become 2 and again nested loop will be executed for 5 times. So nested loop will be executed as many times it can for every iteration of main loop. Getting what I am saying here? So main loop will be executed 3 times, but inside every iteration, every time that main loop is executed, nested loop will be executed again from beginning to ending always. Now again remember one thing when you are using for loop especially. See, for main loop I am using I, but you can use any variable name, not only I. I is just a standard, but you can use any variable name there, no problem. And for nested loop I am using j, but I am not using I again for the nested loop. You should not, in fact, you should not use it. So nested loop and main loop should not have the same counter variable. The reason because count will be missed out, right? So nested loop should not get the same counter variable as main loop. So nested loop should get a different variable. That is the reason for main loop I am using I, nested loop I am using j. But if I use nested loop also I, that will be error. That should not be a valid way of writing. Okay, so remember always nested loop should get a different variable than main loop here. Okay, done. Sorry? Yes, you can do that. Yeah, if it is another loop, if another main loop, you can do that. But if it is nested, you should not be able to. Okay. Then what I am doing is here os dot cells of I comma j dot value. You don't need to write dot value. By default, it will take as dot value only. So value here. Did you understand this logic? What I have written? First time what will be I, total rows are 2 there in the Excel and the columns are 5 columns are there probably. So first time the main loop will be I equals to 1 to 2, nested loop will be 1 to 4. So first time I value will be taken 1, nested loop will be executed for 4 times or 5 times, depends on how many columns. So first time it will be like this, 1 comma 1, 1 comma 2, 1 comma 3, 1 comma 4, 1 comma 5, this many times. Then once that 5 columns are completed, go back to the main loop, I value will be taken as 2, then 2 comma 1, 2 comma 2, 2 comma 3, 2 comma 4, 2 comma 5. So nested loop will be starting from beginning for every iteration of the main loop. Okay, so it will take one by one. Now, so we are reading one by one value from the Excel like this. From every cell we are reading from first cell to last cell, one by one it will go. First time first row, second time second row, third time third row, like that it will take. But what is our requirement exactly? Not just reading the data from one by one cell. There is certain validation placed in that. So the validation is like this. If the value whatever is retrieved is test, what should be done? Change the font of it. Do some formatting for the font. Then what formatting that you should do? If ucase and trim of strval equal to, okay, since we are converting into ucase, I am converting into, comparing with uppercase value. So if it is test, what should be done? Whatever the cell value is matching with this, in the same cell, you are not retrieving the value this time. what you are doing, you are changing the format of the font. So to change the format of the font, you say dot font, something called dot font. A cell dot font means here access the font inside the, not the value, get the font to do the formatting. So it access the format font of the cell, font styles or not. Dot font, what you have to do? You change the color first. How do you change the color? Say font dot color. Font dot color. What is the color that you have to give? So not green, just it should be VB green. That you call it as a constant. VBScript gives some constant names for the colors. These constant names are given from Visual Basic. VB green or VB red, VB blue, VB yellow, VB white. Okay, so you have to give as VB and color name, because this is constant and come from Visual Basic. In fact, this constant and variable names are displayed in Visual Basic. Inside classes, that's how they define the variable names, constant variable names. Or there is one more method to change the color. When you give color, you have to give the color name, but you can also provide the color number. Every color will have one number, but you don't need to remember those numbers, forget about those numbers, but understand only the method. When you are giving a number, you call it as index number for the color. Color index. Color, when you say font dot color, you give the name of the color. When you say color index, then you have to give the index number of the color. Index starts from 0 to 54. 54 or 55, I don't remember exactly, but you have, like, depends on the thickness. In the red itself, there are different index numbers. Thick red, light red, depends on the RGB mix. Okay. So it's a color index 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like that you can give. So when you are using number, you give color index, but when you say color, you have to provide the name of the color. So if you have to use like light red, all those, use color index, but if you say normal green or red, this standard colors, rainbow colors, then you say color. So now since it is only green, it's a standard color, so that I just said color equals to VB green. Okay, but I will show you like what are the indexes we have next. Next, what else I have to do? I need to make the font to, or I need to increase the font size, right? Then you say font dot size. If you want to increase the font size, you say font dot size equivalent to whatever the size you want to set. 16 I am setting here. Okay, then you can say os dot cells of I comma j dot font. What should I do next? I want to make it as bold. Say bold. But for bold, you don't set the value, you just make it as true or false. Bold true means bold, enabled. Bold false means disabled and bold, normal style. Similarly, you have to make underline or italic. Then you say underline font dot underline. Similarly, you say italic. Italic equal to true or false. Anything you can set. And if you want to change the name of the font, font dot name equal to whatever the name that you want to Arial block, Arial, Times New Roman, or there are a lot of fonts you have. Any font name you can set up. So that's how you work with the font inside. So dot value means reading the value, but dot font means you are not reading the value. You are accessing the format of the font which is set inside. To change the format of the font, make it as bold, make it as italic or underline, or increase the size, decrease the size, change the name of the font, change the color of the font. Okay. So to do that, you say that cells dot font dot so and so. Okay. Let's see how this works. After this, you are doing some change, right? So you save it, and then you close it, and then you quit from the application. Then you say font styles. I just executed that. Okay, that's fine. And then I did not make that file as visible, so that it's running in a hidden mode. Sheet 5 only, right? One minute. I'm saving it, in fact. This is the same value, str value, access box, okay. It's not looping through even single column. If you see that, I misspelled that variable. So here I have used total calls, and here I am using total columns. So it will take 0 because I am using a numeric here. So when you convert empty, by default empty, but if the empty is converted into numeric, equivalent to 0 it is. Okay. So that's the reason loop is not executing even once. So that's why it was not changing. When you open this now, you can see font has been changed. If you look at that, bold is enabled, italic is enabled, and underline also. At the same time, it is turned to green, and you can see the font also changed to Arial, and you can see font has been increased to 16, but not applicable for other things. Other cells are normal. Okay. And now this time we are doing for single cell, but we also have option to work with the range. It's not like only one cell you can change at a time. You can say, now I want to change it from A2 to this is C3. You can select the range, entire range, and you can do it for entire range. We will see that slowly. That means it's not like, we can do it only for one cell at a time. You can do it for a range of cells also. A complete range you can select and then do that kind of styling for all. Getting what I am saying here? This is how normally you work with the font. Say that cell dot font dot color, font dot size, font dot name, font dot bold, font dot italic, things like that. Now what I have to do is, this time I don't want to change the background color of the font, or sorry, I don't want to change the style of the font. Font has to be let it be like this. Font should be like this normally, but what I have to do this time is, I want to change the background color of the cell. Wherever the data is there, the text is there, I want to change the background color. Then how do you change the background color of a cell? Is write down. So to change the background color, it's not like font we use. So font is only the font you have to access. Cells dot say I comma j dot. There is something called interior. Interior means for background. Dot color, you say it as VB blue. That means I am setting to blue color. I am setting the background color here. So to change the background color of a cell or of a range, you say that range dot interior or that cells dot interior dot color. It's not formats, it's for font styles. See, but font is, I did not do anything, I commented for that particular font, but you can see that background color has been changed. So this is how normally you can do the formatting, but you also have few more things like this. Okay, you have to when it comes to the cells, borders you need to create. Okay, you need to create the borders like a thick border, right? All those, or you may need to create the hyperlinks. You know what is meant by hyperlink? An Excel sheet can create an hyperlink. Now let's say, what is the hyperlink here? Let's say now is, this is just text I have written, but that's supposed to be a link. When I click on that link, Google page should get open. Then what I do is, I'll just right click and you create as an hyperlink. Then you can say web page here, address is google.co.in. I'm just giving the address, click on OK. Now that is turned into link. When you click on that, browser will get open with the URL. For some time it is taking little time. It is opening. It is opening in Opera browser, so it is taking little time. That's okay. But you can see that it is opening Google. That's a hyperlink. So in certain situations you might need to create the hyperlink, or in certain situations you might need to do some other formatting, like when you enter a long number, what happens? Number will be converted like that, display. Okay, number will be converted like that. But assume that you are taking the value from an application, it is very lengthy number. Just say you have taken one SIM number from the application. SIM number will be 90-digit length. Okay, SIM number will be. So when you enter such a long number there, so when it comes to the display, it will be automatically converted into like this. Okay. But if you want to display the complete number, like this, if you want to enter a long number here, if you want to enter still a long number, if you want to enter, then what you can do is, you format this cell as text. Then now you can see it is displayed now. So that means you format the type of that cell, maybe a text or maybe a date, like date also. There is a date here, so normally date will be like this, 20 January 2016. If you give like this, date will be automatically converted into like this. And if you want to convert this, let's say date. If you have to convert the date into normal, you can see that it just be converted. So I mean that's formatting that you do. That means data type formatting. Even Excel cells also will have the data type there. Like what kind of a value it has to. I mean, it will not throw any error when if you enter different kind of a value, but it will automatically convert it to that. Okay. So if you want to convert the type of the cell or the data inside it, then we use a different technique. Okay. So let's wait for that. We'll stop here today with this cell. So this is how normally you work with the font styles and the background. Tomorrow we will see all of them. Also we will see the range. Okay.